Welcome to Fast Pace, the new growth, leadership and management podcast featuring Josh Phegan and Dean Mackie. We wanted to peel back the layers on what happens in the world of fast-paced real estate agencies, from new leadership models to the management challenges we all face each day. This is about a new era in the estate agency sector. Rapid changes to business models, service lines, remuneration and growth present the greatest opportunities that we've ever seen. Sit back, get inspired, grow your skills and reimagine what's possible with Fast Pace. Every Friday, wherever you get your podcasts, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts and Josh Phegan Digital.
One of my favourite quotes, Dean, of all time is, the better that you get at what you do, the more that people are going to want to use you. So how are you planning on coping with that new level of demand? And it kind of gets you to think very differently about this whole conversation around how do you just manage it all? What are some leader tips for managing workload? Dean, I don't know about you, but in the last 10 years, do you reckon that we've got more work and more things coming at us? And if we have, what are we doing to actually manage workload to really make sure we're spending our time where it needs to be?
Well, this is an important conversation because, there's a lot of people that are consistently exhausted, burnt out and sort of ineffective. It's a bit like, we as leaders think that we can do it all and you think that if I just outwork everybody else, then it'll be okay. But I think that, this is a really interesting conversation because it lends to a range of things. And I think if I was to assess how to manage workload, it's a constant focus that you need to be on and present on, because if you think about it, if you're just trying to outwork everyone and it's easy to be doing a lot of stuff that potentially is not a priority, right? To do stuff that you're saying yes to things that maybe you should be saying no to. So I think the thing I would say first and foremost is to understand really clearly what is your purpose, what is it that your role is, and where is your highest and best self. Because you can run around with lots of confidence and giving people a sense that everything's okay, but if you're not clear, if you don't have that sense of clarity around what is important to say yes to and what's important to say no to, then potentially you're going to take on a lot of this stuff and drown and potentially not do the things that you promise people and knowing yourself that, and also get to a point of exhaustion, right? So I think first thing I say to people is really make sure you get clear. Don't just run around with a sense of confidence and a sense of let's outwork, but how are we going to make sure we're clear about what it is those things are important, so that way when we're actually making decisions about what to say yes and no to, you can actually make the appropriate prioritisation decision. So that's really important, prioritising based upon what you know is most important. And then that way it helps you stay on point, on your role, and it helps you sort of eliminate a lot of the noise and therefore work a lot on much more meaningful stuff. In addition, mate, I'd say, not being so hard on ourselves. I think setting some realistic goals is also really important. Like, you want to achieve big things, but breaking those big things down into little steps and staying realistic about what's achievable when in the context of whatever it is that's going on. Like at the moment in our real estate space, there's a lot of noise from people because the market volumes are down, right? So cash flow's tight, people got different issues going on. And for empathetically understanding that, but budgeting that then into your day to say, you can't potentially run at the speed that you might want to run at because you've got lots of people that have needs at the moment that you might not otherwise have anticipated that they have needs for. So all of a sudden you're circling back to actually deal with blockages and help people through emotional changes and also help your team to upskill. So I think that's really important. The other thing I'd say, mate, is not trying to do it all yourself, right? Like learning how to delegate. Who can I lean on here? And even if it's not internally, who can I bring in externally that can take the pressure off on this, right? So if I want to move fast through something and I know that I'm probably going to be a blockage because I'm not going to get time to get that information to people, and let's say it's a financial decision, then I'll just get my accountant involved or assign it to a project and say, mate, can you actually take this over and provide all the information these people need, and just call me if there's anything that needs to be clarified. Because, if it meant that I was going to have to do it myself, I might not get to it because it gets deprioritised for some time if I've got other things on my plate. So delegating and collaborating, the other thing is collaborating. So how can you collaborate? So if someone else is doing something well, or there's a way in which that, two people together can create the workload to get a better outcome for everyone, those are the sorts of things for me that when you're trying to manage your workload is really quite important.
Yeah, the interesting thing is actually scheduling unscheduled time. That was a big one that I picked up from Mark Benioff from Salesforce. And that's made a huge difference because I'm finding a bit more free time in the diary than I would have had in the past. And so that just allows me to allocate and move quickly when big opportunities present. Strategic focus. So like literally where are we actually going, and let's get really clear around that. So we have a strategic focus in the business over this year of KJT, so keep Josh talking. So anything that's not me talking is ultimately someone else in the team's actually got to do.
Non-dollar productive otherwise, right?
Yeah, and we just got to stay like really focused and productive around those outcomes. And then I think the other thing is like think systems and people. So right now, is it a system or is it a person that's actually missing inside the organisation? And that's when you go down the leader-leader model. So I want to teach people how to make decisions without me having to be there. That's why instilling values inside the organisation is a really important part so that people can make those decisions in absence of a policy, procedure or outcome. And also too, being in a position that you say, hey guys, at the end of the day, I don't want to make any of the decisions inside of the business, so that you can actually be in a position that you're just looking after the stuff that's the most important.
Spot on. I mean, look, I can, just listening to you talk just then, Josh, I can think of a number of situations in our business right now that there are certain people that have a really high workload, and if everything's relying on that person to make a decision, then things can get off track pretty easy, because then the responsiveness doesn't happen, the communication doesn't happen, and while work might be happening in the background, if that person's got a high workload and they can't deliver on that, then people get disappointed and frustrated, and actually creates more workload and more noise in the business, right? So teaching people to be leaders and teaching them to make decisions is really important, so that it doesn't all have to sit with you as that leader. So I think that's really important. So if you sort of extend that a little bit, sometimes that requires us to be a little bit more vulnerable and also be prepared to learn new skills, right? Because, often we can bog ourselves down in workload, but we're not actually taking the time to sort of say, well, actually, how could I do this better and smarter? What other tools could I be using? What are the processes that might make sense? Maybe there's some technology that might help solve some of your problems. Maybe reorganising some structure inside your organisation can actually help as well. So it's not always about how to do more the same. It's like, how do you create the space to think about how to do it smarter, better, more efficiently? And I think the other part is, like, I took a meeting today. I could have easily taken it in a coffee shop, which I've done a few of in the last few days. I said, bugger, I'm actually near Centennial Park. Why don't I get him to meet me in Centennial? We'll grab two coffees and actually do a lap of Centennial while we have our meeting, right? Now, for me, that was energising in a way that I could have easily just sort of done the same. And it was a beautiful day out, lots of fresh air. It felt good for me, it felt good for that person. But it also creates a bit of space. It creates I think you've got to create enough space for yourself. The old saying, you've got to sort of be willing to receive the light yourself before you can give the light. And I think when you're a leader, you're not only got a massive workload, but you're often giving a lot out to a lot of other people, and that energy, it can get exhausting. So,
which leads you into like renewal cycles, right? 100%. So what are you doing to actually make sure that you renew as a leader? And like sometimes it's quiet reflection. So literally just a pen and a pad and just write out the things that are in your mind and just get it out. And when peak moments hit, you should know. So I would look at the calendar and I thought, geez, I've got 15 minutes spare yesterday in late afternoon. I thought, I'm just going to come in, I'll set up the podcast studio. So I've got no pressure for when Dean comes. Because I had a busy day today as well. But like literally, if it's all done, there was an awkward, weird 15 minutes that not much was happening. I'll just get that done. And literally, so looking ahead and forecasting and scheduling and putting in your calendar, I think, one of the things that we've learned, the family calendar, what are you doing with your kids and wife and things like that? And then what are you doing in terms of your work calendar? And then what are you doing in terms of your exercise and health and relationships like that? And if you get that right, it's a big difference because the right things fall in the right place.
It's also about being still, right? Like, if you when I say be still, often when you're a busy, high-driven person, you've actually got a lot of stuff going on, right? And if you go and get a glass of water and you sort of stir it around and put some dirt in it, it just all swirls around like crazy, right? But the minute that swirling stops and that all just drops to the bottom, it becomes clear again. I think that we've got to create more moments to have clarity, and that means taking breaks. I'm coming up to, in a couple of weeks' time, having a few weeks break, and I can continue to drive my workload at the moment knowing full well that I've got a break coming, right, to give me that moment of stillness and connection with my family and myself. So workload, dealing with a higher workload also requires you to be able to be good at the other things too.